So what I'm doing here today is I'm taking an unfinished cabinet door, and we've got a paint match for one of our cabinet collections, our slate gray. It's a discontinued color, but we still have some cabinets left. What we're going to do is we're going to finish this door to match. Some things to know is this is a raw wood door, so there's no finish on it now. So it doesn't really need any prep work. You can just apply your first coat of paint. Here we have a latex paint. Latex paint isn't necessarily furniture grade paint, but it can work fine if you know how to work it. So we've painted this. It's got a good coat on it. What I'm doing now is I'm kind of buffing down the high points. The water base in the paint kind of raised the grain in the wood. So we have to kind of buff this down gently. Try not to go through the finish. And just smooth this out so the surface is pretty slick and you don't see some of these grainy high points. Once these grainy high points are flat and you think you've got a good smooth surface, I'm going to clean it up really good, dust off all the dust residue from sanding, maybe take a tack cloth to it to wipe off all the dust residue, and then we're going to start applying our coats of Lacquer Finish. Lacquer Finish is great for using on furniture for top coats. It's got a good solid surface hard shell finish once it's done. But you want to apply really, really fine coats because lacquer is a very strong solvent-based finish. Going on top of a latex, it could cause the finish to bubble and alligator up if you're not careful. So we're going to apply really fine coats. We'll get to that in the next step. Okay, so what I've done here is, again, I've already got the coat of latex paint on here to match. I've buffed it down to smooth it out using a 220 grit sandpaper, really fine, and very carefully just kind of buffing it, going in light circles with little pressure just to take down, again, going from something like this, where you can see all this rough stuff, to this where it's much smoother. I then go over it with some steel wool just to knock it down a little further, and this is a furniture grade steel wool. It's a 4-0 quadruple zero steel wool, really for furniture mostly. Clean it off really well. I've masked off a couple sections because I'm just going to do a little set for the video here, and I'm ready to apply my lacquer. Again, this is a lacquer-based finish, not really compatible with latex finish, but if you're careful and you do fine enough coats, it should be fine. And here we're using a satin finish because the finish on our cabinets is satin. So you're going to want to give that a really good shake. Get all the satin powders mixed up into the finish. Then you're going to want to spray a little away first, just to clear the nozzle. And you're just going to do really fine, about 6 to 8 inches away, really fine sweeps. And I kind of just go back and forth, so. And that's all I'm going to do for now because, again, we want to do really fine layers so that it doesn't react with the latex finish and cause a problem. So I'll let this sit for about 5 minutes. This lacquer finish cures really quickly for recoats. That's the nice thing about it. And then once that's done, I'll apply another coat, and I'll probably do that about 4 or 5 times to get a good coat on there. And I might do a little light abrasion with the steel wool before the final coat. So I'll come back and demonstrate that final coat in a little bit. So I'm down to my final sanding and coating. I ended up doing about 10 clear coats of the lacquer because this latex finish was so rough that I had to build up a layer of clear to knock down again. So now that I've done those 10 coats, I've just hit this with the 220 sandpaper again just to really knock down those high points in the old finish. And you can see it powders up quite nicely. That's the lacquer. So now I've done that. I'm going to dust this off with a brush, and I'm going to hit it again with the steel wool just to give it a final buff before I put my final clear coats on. And the clear coats I'll probably do again really fine and in a couple layers. I'll probably do about 3 clear coats of the lacquer. So again, I've got my lacquer finish. I'm going to give it a good shake. Get those satin finish particles mixed in there really well. You can see this is looking pretty smooth now. You can see where I've buffed it compared to where I've not done any sanding. Pretty rough looking. So again, I'm going to spray a little first, clear the nozzle, and then I'm just going to do little quick passes with the lacquer. You can see how I'm doing it. Here you don't have to be as worried about putting on too much because we've already got a nice build of lacquer. So I'm just getting a good coat on there. I'll let that dry. I'll come back and look at it in a few minutes. You might need one more hit with the Brillo, the steel wool after this dries, just to ease those edges down, and then I'll put another final coat on it, and then I'm going to call that good as far as this demonstration goes. Okay, so I'm just going to give this one last buff with the steel wool. Just going with the grain now, nothing too heavy. Just a light abrasion to take out any remaining swirls from previous sanding. We'll go ahead and dust that off. You can see it's pretty smooth. There's a couple little lines in there, but this final coat should take care of that. And give it a shake. Spray a little. And then just back and forth, light strokes with the air. Try and be pretty consistent. I like to go a couple directions. Now we'll let that dry, and that's going to be it for this demonstration. We'll come back and take a look at it when it's finished and compare it to another factory finish board just to see how it looks. Alright, so basically we've gone from a raw birchwood cabinet door without any finish. We gave it a couple coats of the latex finish, latex paint to match our existing cabinet color. Then we went through and did our top coats of the lacquer finish, and the final look, if you look at this is my board compared to a factory finish board. Try and get close here so we can see some of the detail. The color is pretty close. The sheen on the finish is pretty close. In general, it would pass. So we're good.